have with me Dr. Dan Ekere, a lecturer from the University of Lagos, and lawyer and public affairs analyst, Barrister Jide Ologun. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right, so let's look at the newspapers this morning. The front page says here in the Daily Trust, how gunmen abducted Buhari's in-law in Daura. Security operatives search for kidnappers. The Nigerian Tribune says here, Mayday, discordant tunes over 30,000 naira minimum wage. The riders here says Akwa Ibom, Benue, Zamfara, Adamawa, Kano, Rivers, Ekiti, others ready to pay. Enugu, Ebonyi, Edo give conditions. Let states decide minimum wage, says Oyo governor-elect. Life becoming increasingly difficult for Nigerians, says Labour. The Vanguard says Labour to federal government. Fight unemployment, insecurity, debt burden. Decries rising inflation. State of infrastructure. Seek a review of power sector privatization. New national minimum wage will be fully implemented, says Buhari. Governors promise to pay 30,000 naira minimum wage. This day says here, kidnappers attack Daura, abduct district head Umar. 17 others killed in Katsina State. The blueprint, Senate presidency, we won't allow budget delay under my watch, says Lawan. The rider says, I enjoy ex-governors backing, insist on open balloting, don't take Nigerians for granted, says Blueprint chair. The Daily Sun says, at retreat for old and incoming governors, Magu EFCC chair hits governors, accuses them of inflating security votes, blames terrorism, banditry, and corruption. The Nation says, fate of disco shaky as government plans other options. Labour pay minimum wage now. So we'll stay with the Nation newspaper. It says, fate of disco shaky as government plans other options. Barrister.
Yeah, I'm so glad about that because disco and all the stakeholders in the power sector, they have frustrated the economy of the country, they have frustrated the people of Nigeria, and they have been given the opportunity to add value. And I think the government is beginning to realize the fact that you must serve the people. And if there are hindrances, you have the mandate to deal with these hindrances. I've always said it that under our constitution, the government has a responsibility to abolish corruption and abuse of office. So because whether we like it or not, some of the contributors to the fact that we became the capital of poverty in the world is this electric deficiency that we have in the country. If you look at countries that are advanced, it's because they have put this in place. And I have said it, for a country like the USA, it is like a fundamental human right of a human being to have access to electricity, because they cannot just imagine that you live in a community and you don't have access to that. So if the government wants to be relevant, I think they must find a way out to solve this critical problem that will lead to solving other problems. Because when you prosper the nation, definitely, you know, the people will rejoice.
Dr. Kiri, is this coming too little too late?
Well, it's better late than never.
Okay.
Yeah, but I respect the courage of the former government to have even broken the process into the very. But then, my fear is whether those who took over actually know what it takes. I don't know if they are professionals, because if they are, they've not shown what, you know, their training and calling really is. What is the challenge really? This is not an unattainable goal. You know, electricity supply that is constant. As we speak, we are paying for darkness, you know, and though we blame the discos, but the government has a lot of role to play as well.
Okay.
You know, because when you look at, you tell us you've generated, I remember listening to the Minister of Power, you know, saying that they are now generating 7,000 megawatts. There's no question about that. So how come we don't find it in the homes? Yeah, because when you say there are no questions about that, it means that you are equally carrying it to the end users. But that's not what the situation is.
Even if we have other options, the discos currently have the infrastructure in place. How possible will it be for these options to penetrate the market and take it away from the discos?
When you look at it from the point of view of the telecommunication, you know, they are all businessmen and women, the various organizations that are into business. There are ways other investors will come in. we do know that there are some of these, communication companies that don't have their own, various facilities. They work with the others. All they do is they pay. Now, a lot of these ones who have come on board, I am very convinced that what was on ground is what so many of them have equally, hooked onto for utilization. So at the end of the day, they will find a way. And again, if you are coming into business, you should know what it takes to go into a business environment. So as an investor, you know what you are putting in, and you know what you are taking out of it. So I am convinced that at the time this system, this process is, at the time it is properly handled, sanitize it, let's know who is who, let's know who is doing what, and let's equally give them the free hand to do it.
Okay, let me get to the barrister now. He mentioned something, properly handled, the proper handling of the situations here. We know that at the civil service there's a lot of bottlenecks, and so how easy will it be for this people to come on board and invest in Nigeria?
I believe where there is a will, there is a way.
Okay.
Some Nigerians were executed in Saudi Arabia, but when we needed to rescue some, we took all the necessary steps. And I'm putting this responsibility on the government that you have the ministries, departments, and agencies that are saddled with regulating the affairs of the country. And if you create the impression that you are being oppressed by some stakeholders you should regulate, I think it's a sign of failure. At the end of the day, we'll be talking about what this regime has achieved. And if you come out to say you have been overtaken by those you should ensure render the services, then it shows you are not responsible enough to the people. How they go about it is why they are there. Why do we have ministries? Why do we have the agencies? So it's an obligation, it's a responsibility, and it must be carried out. And if you fail to carry it out, it will be recorded in history. I look forward to that time in Nigeria when we celebrate the first 60 days of uninterrupted power supply. And by the way, do you know we effectively supply electricity to 2 other countries? So how have we achieved that? So I think we need to visit the political undertone behind this failure and migrate to success.
I'm afraid that's all we can take at this time. Thank you very much, Dr. Dan Ekere and Barrister Jide Ologun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
I have with me Dr. Dan Ekere, lecturer from the University of Lagos, and lawyer and public affairs analyst Jide Ologun. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on TVC Breakfast this morning.
Thank you.
Let's head straight to the papers, and I start with the Nigerian Tribune. May Day, discordant tunes over 30,000 naira minimum wage. Akwa Ibom, Benue, Zamfara, Adamawa, Kano, Rivers, Ekiti, others ready to pay. Enugu, Ebonyi, Edo give conditions. Let states decide minimum wage or your governor-elect. Life becoming increasingly difficult for Nigerians. Labour. And we move to the front page of the Vanguard. Labour to federal government fight unemployment, insecurity, debt burden. The cries, rising inflation, state of infrastructure, 6th review of power sector privatization. New national minimum wage will be fully implemented. President Buhari speaking there. Governors promised to pay 30,000 naira minimum wage. And to the front page of this day, kidnappers attack Daura, abduct district head Umar, 17 others killed in Katsina. And on the front page of the blueprint, Senate presidency, we won't allow budget delay under my watch. Lawan says, I enjoy ex-governors backing, insist on open balloting. Don't take Nigerians for granted. Blueprint chair. And under Daily Sun now, at retreat for old and incoming governors, Magu EFCC chair hits governors, accuses them of inflating security votes, blames terrorism, banditry on corruption. And finally, on the front page of the Nation newspaper, fate of discos shaky as the government plans other options. Labour pay minimum wage now. And this issue of minimum wage seems to be running across almost all the papers this morning, stemming from yesterday's May Day celebration. And I must say, Happy Workers' Day, gentlemen. You were not here yesterday.
Thank
but
you.
anyway, Labour is insisting on the payment of the 30,000 naira minimum wage, and some governors have agreed to pay. On the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, Akwa Ibom, Benue, Zamfara, Adamawa, and some other states. But Enugu, Ebonyi, Edo have given conditions, and Oyo governor-elect is saying, let states decide minimum wage. I start with you, Dr. Dan.
Yeah, thank you. We must say that I want to commend the president for signing the minimum wage bill, even though that money can actually take anybody home in Nigeria, except maybe some very remote places. No, but all the same. Now, it has become a law. And I want to believe that every law should be obeyed. I do not see why any governor will begin to tell you, give conditions for paying minimum wage, which is already a law. And he's aware of this, even as we speak. Some who contested, and you still have enough time.
Perhaps the debt burden he's going to inherit.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You see, the resources he's even hoping to spend are actually the work of these people that we are talking about, the people you are going to pay. It's not coming in with his own family money. It's coming in with the money that the state is working, for. And it is the labor that is actually producing this money and the rest of it. So why would you not pay this little token? For me, I don't see any reason. And in any case, there's no state in Nigeria that cannot pay this money.
How do you mean? Because the 18,000 naira, some states couldn't even pay.
It wasn't because they don't have the ability to. It is because they are wicked.
Really?
They are wicked.
How do you mean?
We know what they go home with themselves. All right? Some of them are just waiting for allocation. With all the, if not for this crisis, do you even know that Oshu has gold and the rest of it?
Well, the structure we run in the country. Most of the states do not really have access, so whatever revenue, it's to the center.
It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. Now, the federal government is looking for money. There are resources to exploit. They have, because there's money from oil, they are not even bothered about anything else. No, IGR is no longer an issue. All you wait for is resources from the center. I think that's part of the problem. Then again, look at security votes. Governors will tell you they are handicapped because they cannot control the police, and yet
they get security votes. So questions have been asked. What are they doing with the security vote? Let's get to your view on this.
No, let's do some content analysis here.
All right.
Even the EFCC acting chairman just told us that some governors inflate the security vote. So for me, it's a matter of prioritization. And of course, if any governor is claiming that he or she cannot pay the minimum wage, we should ask questions. Do you have resources in your region? We've been talking about restructuring. If the governors of this country engage the federal government and lobby and advocate for managing the resources within their states,
do you think they'll get it?
Why not? I mean, I've said it. A wise man said, when the government respects the people, it's good governance. But when the people are afraid of the government, it's bad governance. So those who are representing us, whether they are governors or legislators, should be able to position our interests. And by the way, I must also direct my grievance to the labor organization. We said that rather than focusing on the minimum wage, which is just an aspect of the issues that affect the workforce, why don't you bring in the concept of the general economic environment, which they are now bringing in, infrastructure, health facility, and whatever. Because if we look at Section 16, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, these things are stipulated. The government must create an enabling environment, make affordable houses available, food, happiness, care of the
for labor, it's a situation of putting the cart before the horse.
They're even confused. And with all due respect, I point them back to the International Labour Organization that came into existence as far back as 1919. We are talking about social justice. But here again, I think we have elements of compromise, because those who are expected to represent the people, they go in there, they settle themselves, and they start speaking in other languages. And that is what we are having also in the governance of the country. Like Dr. Ekere said, How many of those who have been governors or who can tell us that the aid they appoint, senior special assistant and junior assistant, earn 30,000 naira per month? By the way, when you look at the 18,000 naira of 2011 and the 30,000 naira of 2019 that we are yet to start paying, and you benchmark it with the pump price of PMS, petroleum, it is the same. If you benchmark it with the dollar, it's even lower.
Okay, let's quickly touch on a suggestion that states should be allowed to decide the minimum wage.
Yeah, but that will only happen if we operate a proper federation, you know. On a normal day, I do not expect that the federal government will be the one to set, you know, such wage limits. But we run a system that we call federal, even though it's unitary, that states have to go to the national to collect, you know, handouts. And until we run a system where the states, the demand is on the state to generate resources and pay tax to the federal, you will be able to get to that point where the states will decide what will be the minimum wage. Because at the moment, that is not what we are operating. However, they are still, even with this particular structure we are running, the states still have enormous resources to exploit. Unfortunately, a lot of the governors are not even thinking in that direction. They are not, because they are lazy. They are just looking for what is ready, which is the oil money for them to just, you know, share, take home.
Dr.
And I think it doesn't go well for this country.
We have to leave it at that point. Mr. Ologun, thank you for your time.